Hi, everyone. So yeah, feel free to unmute. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I have your info on the slide, but if you don't mind, I'll start with in the order on the slide. Sharon, if you don't mind just sharing who you are and what your internship was.
Yeah, thanks, Diana. So I'm Sharon. I hope you can hear me. Okay, good. Yeah, so I'm Sharon. I'm going into my fourth year in accounting. I did a 12-month internship at a company called Geotab, which is like a car tech company, and I worked in their internal audit and risk management department.
Great, thanks. Chris?
Hey guys, this is Chris, and I'm a fourth year accounting student. My co-op term was being a financial student at the CAA, and there were 3 rotations. So mostly like a financial pre-approved CPA program. So we got like 3 rotations for the whole year, 12-month co-op term. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, that's a really cool feature of CAA is the rotational, that you get to do a bunch of different functions. Okay, Catherine.
Hi guys, I'm Catherine. I'm now a fourth year consumer behavior student, and I did a 16-month co-op at IBM as a technical writer. So this was actually completely unrelated to my program. As mentioned in the presentation, if you want to do something outside of your program, that is completely okay. So my role was very technical based and very computer based. So I worked on documentation for user understanding for some software products at IBM, and this involved working with developers and doing a lot of maintenance on the content on their website.
Awesome. Thanks. And Samantha.
Hi everyone, my name is Samantha and I'm a fourth year accounting student. I did 16 months long co-op. The first 8 months was the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan and the last 8 months was in Deloitte. So Ontario Teachers Pension Plan is, a pension plan board. We did a lot of investments. Also during my co-op, I was in financial reporting department, helping with accounts payable and financial reporting. And my co-op at Deloitte was for both business tax team and auditing. So during my first 4 months, I was helping with a bunch of tax returns, tax compliance, and tax provisions. And my second co-op with Deloitte, I was at the audit team, and I was helping with data transactions for very small audit files.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. And as you can see, Samantha actually combined 2 different roles for her 16-month internship, which is something we do allow as long as the timeline works out. In order to enroll in the program, the minimum is 8 months, but if it's 8 months and you want to pursue something different after, that's possible. So I do want to loop back to Sharon and Chris, because I think Catherine and Sam, you gave a nice overview of some of the key responsibilities. But if you don't mind, Chris, yeah, we can start with you about what you did at CAA.
Yeah, sure. For CAAs, there were 3 rotations. So for specific, I've got financial reporting, financial operations, as well as FP&A. So for details, financial reporting, we do like month-end transactions. It's mostly like a accounting job. It's like we do month-end transactions every month, and we got a to-do list for each of the group member, and we got our own stuff to do every month. So for financial operations, we do like day-to-day transactions. We deal with transactions with the bank, and also we do transactions with the clients. Because CAA, is a insurance company. It got like Department of Insurance. So we deal with insurance policies with the clients and the banks. So we also do some bank reconciliation, we do that, and we make sure that the bank matches our system data. And also for FP&A, it's really most likely financial stuff we do. Not so much boring like accounting. We do some brainstorming every day for doing the cash flows, and we got to figure out like what is the significant transactions for the cash flow, and we got to figure out why this significant transaction happened. So yeah, this was basically what I did for my co-op term.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. And yeah, we have a lot of accounting and finance students. So this actually worked out. We've got like in terms of representation, but I want the other students to know too that we're really happy to see HR and on the other fields as well. So, and you'll see there's more to it than just the numbers. What about Sharon? Yeah.
Yeah, so for my internship experience, I mostly did internal audit. So we're looking at assessing internal functions of the company. So I did mainly non-financial audits, like looking at different operations in the company. Within my role over 12 months that I worked there, I kind of started audits from start to finish in terms of doing audit research, figuring out audit methodology, as well as conducting audit interviews, doing audit testing, doing all the analysis and risk metrics around that, as well as writing up the reports. And then I also had to keep a central repository of all of our audit documents, whether it is our testing documents, any screenshots or deliverables, as well as any like interview meeting minutes as well. I kept a file of that for the whole department. But with my role, I also was able to shadow other departments and also help in other different areas of the company. So for example, my interest is in HR. So I took on a lot of side projects working with the campus team, especially in like events, like helping host and creating a lot of events for interns in the company, as well as for junior student interns.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great example of going beyond maybe your core duties to engage in the company in a different way to make sure you achieve your goals and your interests. That's great. So yeah, my next question is, I'm going to start with Catherine. What was the highlight of your internship experience for you? What stands out?
So with IBM, there actually is a huge internship community. So there were hundreds of interns there. So they would host a lot of intern-specific events just to help us network in other areas and also make some friends. So I think one of the highlights for me is they actually had an intern cruise party. So they took us to the Toronto Harbourfront and they had us on cruises, and it was just interns only. And that was really fun, and it made me feel like the company really wanted to support their interns. So that was probably one of the highlights for me.
Awesome. Sounds fun. Great. And what about you, Sam? A highlight that comes to mind?
Yeah, so I know the stereotypical software like accounting students is that we mainly work with numbers. However, that's not true, because at Deloitte, we actually work with people a lot more than you can ever think. Just for example, every time we get a new tax file, we form a new team. So we really get a chance to meet a lot of people from different offices, say for like Toronto office, Burlington office, Vaughan office. I work with so many professionals, and I'm so happy that I get a chance to learn a lot of new stuff from them. I remember the coolest thing I've ever had was that one time my senior manager, she actually had a long meeting with me. You know, for a co-op student, we're not expected to learn of, say, the tax, like we're not like asking to know tax at a higher level. However, my manager, she actually had a meeting with me and kind of just went me through the whole file and told me like, hey, in the future career, you can also do this, do that, which is really cool. And it kind of helped me had a basic knowledge of what I can do in the future. So yeah, I'd definitely say the teams I've worked with at Deloitte were the best part.
Awesome. Great. And Chris, highlight for you?
Yeah, so for highlight for me is that, you know, like the co-op term will always teach you something where you're learning. It's like teaching you things that beyond that you learn from school. So for example, for CAA, we use SAP system to do some data searching, and we're dragging out data from the system that we used. Because CAA have got different departments, like we got like insurance, we got memberships. So different departments, we got different data. So for the whole company, we have to use like a database. We call it SAP system. We use that. And for all the employees in CAA to drag the data out, and we use it. So this is I think is the highlight thing. And we also learn how to use a system called Guidewire. This is a system we use for applying our insurance policies. And there are lots of insurance informations for the claims at CAA. So I think that there are technical skills that we learn from the co-op term, other than like soft skills like problem solving or some behavior skills. So those technical skills are really impressive me and really amazing when I'm learning. So I think they're also really beautiful to write on your resume if you want to apply the job next time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You feel like you've got something hard and soft to contribute. Yeah, absolutely. And how about Sharon? Highlight for you?
I have a lot of highlights.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to pinpoint. But I think for me with Geotab, the same thing with IBM. That's Catherine also shared, is that Geotab also has a strong and huge student campus community. So there were like, I think over 100 students that were in my cohort when I joined the company last year. And one of the things the company does is every term they do like a student intern challenge, which is kind of like a case competition where you basically have 3 choices of business problems that the company is trying to solve. And then you form a team with either 2 of the interns, and just you can be randomly selected to join a team of 3 to 4 interns. And you basically like do your research on that particular problem, find a solution for it, and then you present it in front of a panel of other interns, past interns, as well as employees and managers in the company. And one of my coworkers actually like convinced me to do it. I was on the fence. And I'm so glad I did it because this was my first case competition ever. I struggled with imposter syndrome. So like I really was insecure about doing this. But our team actually placed second, which is amazing to me when they said it. I was like, what? Second? No way. But that was one of my favorite moments because it was something new to me and it kind of put me outside of my comfort zone. As well as going to help me try to solve a case in a short amount of time, and also leveraging my resources, not only within the company, but also outside and as well as through my team members.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, it's all about going for it and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. It sounds like also just recognizing as an intern you're new and you might feel intimidated at first, but I think we all agree it's worthwhile to put yourself out there and see what sticks and what suits you. So since we're at the phase of these students are just going to start their search this year, could you share a little bit about how you went about your search to receive the job offer? It might be accessing your network or attending events. Like, what was your approach to kind of land a position? And maybe we'll start with Samantha, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so prior to my first co-op, I've never had a job in accounting area. So I feel like it was a bit tricky for me to get a job in the beginning. And I attended tons of like info sessions and did coffee chats with at least like 30 professionals to get information of the company to see if I really want to work there and to understand what is required as an auditor or say a tax analyst. I also served on LinkedIn on a daily basis to get the newest updates from the recruiters. And I would say most of the jobs I applied to were actually from LinkedIn because they were very up to date and you can see how many people are competing with you. So I definitely say LinkedIn will be your best friend if you're looking for a job.
Yeah, great tip. All right, Catherine.
I actually count my blessings all the time because IBM, like this role was probably the 3rd I applied to and the first interview that I had. And I think it was because I applied as soon as possible. As soon as I got into the DAN Management Program, I applied right away. And this was in the fall time. And as Diana mentioned in the presentation, the peak application time is in winter. So I applied earlier than most, I think. And I think that's a big reason why I got the role so quickly. So my biggest tip is start as soon as possible. And yeah, I just applied through the Western portal. And yeah, but I definitely recommend reaching out to individuals on LinkedIn as well. I know people love to talk about their professional journey and would love to help you out as much as possible. So that too.
Right. Yeah, that's a great example, Catherine, of like getting an edge on competition by being ready to go in the fall for those early postings. And yeah, great. All right, Sharon.
Same thing as Samantha and Catherine. I think LinkedIn is like your best friend when it comes to looking for jobs. But I also did leverage the Western Connect portal. That's how I initially applied to my position and then how I got through with my position. But there are also a few other companies that I applied to. And what I did for a number of them is that they have a few clubs on campus that actually do networking sessions. So like, for example, the DAN Management Internship Organization, as well as the Western Accounting Association, they host like, I think per term, they have like 1 or 2 networking sessions. And I think that's also a great way for students to definitely like leverage a network and meet other professionals in industries and companies that they're interested in working at to kind of market yourself as well as kind of get to know what the company's like from a day-to-day level from someone that actually currently works there.
Great point about the clubs. There's a lot of resources there. Okay, Chris.
Yeah, just like Sharon and Samantha said. So for me, I just joined some info sessions because info sessions is a really good way for students to know more about the company. Like, recruiting is like double side choosing. It's not the company choose you and you also choose the company as well. So joining info session helps you to know more about this company, the culture, the environment, the way they work, like how they work, how does the business run. You know more about them and you can just figure out whether you want to work with them or not, whether this environment fits you. So info session is a really good tool for students to more about the company. And also after the info session, most likely the recruiters will give some like free time for you guys to ask questions. And it's a really good time for you to make your connections like face to face. So it's a more efficient, I think, to just go to the LinkedIn and find someone and say, hey, I do you want something to talk, because you got a face-to-face chance and they know you, they know your face and they know your voice. So it's better and efficient to join info session before you apply the job.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. And just if anyone's not certain where to find information about those info sessions, you might find it through clubs, as Sharon mentioned, but the other option is Western Connect, the events tab. We host a bunch of recruitment sessions in partnerships with those employers, and they're already starting. So do take a look at the events calendar and see what's available. And then LinkedIn, I hear you. It's a great resource. Another thing too is looking up alumni on LinkedIn and reaching out, for some chats or with some questions about how did they get where they are now. So lastly, I just want to ask, I suppose, if you could share, we've given some tips on how to land the job. Is there anything that you would say helped you stand out as a candidate? I think it was Samantha, you mentioned you hadn't had any professional experience before, like you'd worked in maybe some other sectors. Like that's my question. What were your jobs before the internship? Because I think some students, that's a concern, they've worked in retail or just sectors that they might not think are applicable. So if you don't mind sharing, what's your background? So Sam, go ahead.
Yeah. So for me, previously I was the student ambassador of Western University. That was my part-time job, and that role was more like a customer-related role. So to say, what I can really bring to the future accounting area is my interpersonal skills. Like for example, even if we're accountants, right? You would feel like, oh, accountants, they're just deal with numbers, but actually we still need to interact with our clients. You need to make sure what your clients want. You need to make sure that we deliver the correct information to our clients. So that's what really matters. And to be honest, I feel like during those interviews, the recruiters, they're not able to tell, hey, if you are very smart, if you know everything, they can only tell if you're a good person to work with. So just show the fact that you can be a nice team player, you're a easygoing person. I feel like that's what really makes you stand out in the interview process, and that was actually what made me stand out in the interview process.
Makes sense. Okay, Sharon.
Yeah, I think Samantha touched on a good point there in terms of showing your personality. That's definitely something I even asked my manager after I got hired, like a couple months after we got to know each other. That what made me stand out. She said definitely being personable during the interview. Like, and even though like you really should be prepping for interviews. I know sometimes like you want to memorize responses like word for word, and then if you mess up, you might just stumble. It's okay to make a few mistakes during interview. It kind of shows that human element, but just making sure that you're showing your personality. And a lot of them hiring managers, they tend to they look at students that they know that they can work well with, as Samantha said. But I think definitely as well, adding on to that is knowing your resume as well as your previous experiences, and also being able to talk about experiences that are not like for projects that are not listed within your resume, as well as any other extracurricular. Because sometimes they might have a section of your resume that just states like what club you're in, but sometimes hiring manager might ask you, okay, so you're in this club, tell me more about that experience. Kind of knowing that at the back of your hand, at the back of your head is good to mention in interviews, as well as do your research with the company. especially, for example, with me at Geotab, I didn't know much about the telematics industry before I applied. I did my research. Some companies have like an annual report that you can definitely look at to kind of get to know what the company's like, what project they're currently working on. That's a good way to stand out in terms of if you say anything that's interesting to you in any of those reports, mention that in the interview, as well as if you have any questions or follow-ups, you can ask that as well. And that also just shows that you're interested as well as you're taking initiative in terms of trying to get to know what the company is really like. Asking those questions during an interview can also make you stand out.
Awesome. Great points. Definitely do your research and be ready. And I love your point. Ask questions. Always ask questions in an interview. Okay, Catherine.
Yeah, so I agree with Sharon as well. I studied for my interview like it was an exam. I read their annual report. I looked at their history, their background, you know, how they're doing now. And when it came down to it during my interview, they didn't ask me about any of that, but it was still good to know just in case they did. But as they mentioned before, being personable was the main thing that they were looking for. So a huge part of my interview was them asking if I was prepared to learn and how adaptable I was, because they understand that you're just an intern and that you don't really have that many professional skills. So that's another thing. And also utilize your leadership experiences. So if you don't have a lot of work experience, I had some past vice president roles and executive roles, and that's something they're looking for as well. Like, because if you're involved on campus, I feel like they think you're a little more prepared to be in a professional environment. So that's important as well. And yeah.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, don't underestimate your extracurriculars. All right, Chris.
Yeah, so based on the before experience I had, so I think those students got enough like skills and tips for the technical skills for how to make a good resume, how to make a good interview. But I'm going to share you like soft skills like your mind and your thought when I applying for the co-op. Just like international student like me, I know that many international students find out that English is not really easy for sometimes, maybe for interview, maybe got nervous or something to talk. And I'm just the same as you. So, and always at the beginning, I got like tons of rejections emails. Like I can just rephrase it what they say. Okay, thank you for application. Unfortunately, we got blah, blah, blah. We got tons of rejection email. So for my advice to you guys is that just relax and be peaceful. It's not your fault. It's never doubt about yourself. Never says that, okay, I am a loser. I don't deserve that. No, it's not your fault. It's maybe because your resume doesn't just match their job description or something. Just fix your resume. Just practice your interview. Just practice more and you prepare well. And I know that some days your destination, you will achieve that. So my tips for how to stand out is to be relaxed and peaceful. Don't receive a rejection email and you say no to yourself, and just keep going, move on. Yeah.
That's really helpful, Chris. I appreciate your honesty. And those rejection emails, yeah, when you first start, you might feel really demoralized or unmotivated, but please keep going. Chris is so right that persistence means a lot in this process. So if you can kind of just keep going, learn from it, don't beat yourself up. It happens to all of us. And you have a lot to offer, so stay strong. And international students, yes, if language is something that you're concerned about, we do have even an international career coach in our team that can talk to you about that. Maybe book a mock interview if it's the oral communication you're worried about. There's lots of support, so please check it out and stay with us.
So did you guys feel better prepared, knowledgeable enough before you started your positions, or did you find that the company training was more helpful? Sorry, this is from Karen in the chat. I don't know if you guys can see the chat.
Yeah. I can answer that just from my experience if you want. For me, I felt more comfortable after that training with my company, because with Geotab itself, they have like 1 week of like company onboarding training. And then the second week you're there is like department specific training. So before going into this role, I never had like an audit or accounting experience before. I only had like compliance. which somehow my department fell under compliance. So I had a bit of an insight, a little bit from prior experience, but I was more prepared after those 2 weeks of training, which most companies tend to give all interns and students training before they actually get into the work.
Okay, awesome. Does anybody else want to speak to that one? So did you feel prepared, knowledgeable enough before you started your position, or did you find the company training was more helpful? Like, did you need a little bit more training for the role that you were jumping into, or did you feel like your classroom learning and the skills that you already had were enough? Anyone else from the panel? No?
Yeah, I can say something. So I felt like a fish out of water. And when I first started my job, I had major imposter syndrome, and I think that's okay. A lot of interns do. So if you feel overwhelmed at the beginning, just remember that the company is there to help you fit into your role better. So yeah, they train you extensively. And if you still feel like you're lacking the skills that are required, just ask questions. Yeah.
Okay, well, those are the main questions I have. I really appreciate Sharon, Chris, Catherine, Samantha. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that everyone here found it helpful to hear about the interns' experiences. I am curious, if you're willing, no pressure, if students have questions for you about your particular company that you worked at, if you can put your email in the chat, if you're open to receiving any inquiries about your internship, and then maybe they'll reach out to you about a specific question. But if you don't want to, that's fine too. They can ask me. So so that's that. Thank you so much. All right, so speaking of questions, yeah, oh yes, thanks, Sharon. So yeah, questions. We're actually in a new space. So if you've worked with us last year or you've been before, we used to be in the basement of the social science. We're moving up in the world. We're on the main floor. So hopefully you can find us a little bit more accessible now in 2040. We're here from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 1 o'clock to 3 p.m. for a drop-in if you just want to say hello in between class and ask a question. If it's more convenient, you can email mossintern@uwo.ca, as well as book a virtual appointment with me. I believe the link is on the website. We use Calendly to book those. So lots of ways to stay connected. And I will open it up. We have 5 minutes, but I'm happy to stay late if whoever can, if you have questions. And I'll do a little plug. I'm just going to leave this here for some of the other workshops being offered outside of our program. If you are interested in the networking piece that was talked about by the panel, international students, there's a workshop coming up for those students. So lots of central resources to think about, but that's at career.uwo.ca.